Thank you very much for having us in the conversation. Charles Ringera is the Chief Executive Officer of the Higher Education Loans Board. And we talked about the Higher Education Loans Board established under an Act of Parliament. It has specific mandate. And we were having this conversation early in the week with a lawyer who's representing a number of people who've gone to court, and they're saying, you know what, there's something wrong with the act that establishes the Higher Education Loans Board because of some mandatory penalty that should be levied on people who default in payment. This ends up shooting the amount of money that then somebody is required to pay, which makes it even harder for somebody to pay, which ends up having problems for the Higher Education Loans Board, but also the conversation and information that is shared by the Higher Education Loans Board. Is it sufficient? Does everybody understand their responsibilities when they take a loan? Charles Ringera, thank you very much for joining us. Welcome to the Situation Room.
Thank you very much, Latif.
That is called the hot seat, and because you are the man who basically is facing heat from all quarters, we will not make this one hot for you today. We will just make it very hot. So we get to understand fully the Higher Education Loans Board. Let's start with the basics, okay? We know you're established under an Act of Parliament. Tell us why the Higher Education Loans Board was established, what it was called before, then we have this Act, and what is your primary mandate?
Okay, thank you, Latif, and I want to say good morning to everybody who is tuned in just to listen to a conversation of empowering dreams and also educating Kenyans of what we do. So, Higher Education Loans Board was established by an Act of Parliament on 7th of July 1995, which is called HELB Act Cap 213A. Hitherto, before that, as you're aware, we and the USCLS, University Student Loan Scheme, and that was started way back in 1952 by the colonial government. And mainly the guys who are going to, higher education then were going to India, were going to UK, were going to South Africa, Russia. Those are the guys who were enjoying that facility, but it was not a loan. Mm-hmm. And that went on until 1963 when we under our independence. And again, it was still pushed, but now there was, University of Dar es Salaam, and there was also Makerere, because the University of Nairobi are not coming into play then. Mm. And that went on until 1974, when the government realized that, it was becoming very expensive for us to be able to fund higher education. And therefore, there was need for household income to start participating. And therefore, the boom was introduced. Mm-hmm. And people confused the boom with free money. And unfortunately, that boom and got very fine print that you're supposed to pay back. Mm. And I'm quoting 1974 because that's the time it became now a loan. And that went on until 1979. And I put 1979 as a key benchmark because in 1979 is the first time we started the ID system. So between 1974 and 1979, we are funding our names. Eric Latif. Mm. We didn't know what the name is. And that was done by a desk within Joko House, Ministry of Education. And that went on until 1995 when government realized, this is building. We can't be able to break even. And we needed now to get a formalized way of how we can be able to do it. Mm-hmm. And come 1995, 7th of July, then HELB Act Cap 213A was then formalized by the National Assembly, and then it became a law. What is interesting about that act is that it said you will go back to 1974 and look for all those loans. So I think the people there then, maybe the ones who started like Nyegoti Chacha, I call him HELB 001, Professor Nyegoti Chacha Nyegoti, asked, how will you know Eric Latif? Because Eric Latif was only written Eric Latif. We don't know the ID number, which is the unique identifier. They said, somehow go back, and then they asked, who has paid? They said, this list has paid. How much have they paid? That money which is there. Where is that money so that they can take it back again? They said, we will give you that money. And the HELB was started with 1 million Kenya shillings, which is the money they say was actually,
that was the seed.
That was the seed.
That's the money that had been paid by the people
the money
who
which was within the Ministry of Education.
Maybe Treasury had received more money. So nobody knows actually how much had been received.
But let me tell you,
yes.
I'm one of those people who received boom.
Yes.
And I began by working for the government as a teacher.
Yes.
They decided to deduct that money immediately.
Yes.
It was deducted continuously for 10 years, then they stopped.
Which period?
I graduated in 1981.
Yes.
And for 10 years, up to 1991. After 91, they stopped deducting. So I assumed I'd paid it in full.
Hopefully. We need to
So
take
by the
your
time
ID.
Professor Chacha was being told now, start this thing in 1995.
Yes.
Maybe your name was there as Charles Muga. And
Yes.
Charles Muga has paid 5,000.
Yes.
Or maybe it was never there.
Correct. Maybe it was never there. Because there was no system of accountability
All
of
right.
who is paying and who is not paying.
Yes.
And therefore, we took over, I think, a debt of about 5 billion or thereabout. We were told these people have not yet paid, about 5 billion. These people are paid or they have not paid. And then government started with the annual estimate from Parliament.
Yes.
Now, those annual estimates from Parliament, which are approved through the normal budget process, includes A in A, that's appropriations in end, which is the recoveries you paid. So we will put that as part of the kitty, and then government will also put some seed, and then we'll put together, they will vote and say, this year, HELB should be able to take, this amount to take this number of students. Anyway, the students were not many. I mean, universities enrollment was what? Maybe 3,000 or somewhere there. So it wasn't
Remember, in those days, there was one university.
correct. There.
There.
Yeah, there
There was the University
Yes,
of Nairobi.
yes. So, but if you look at the strides we have made within the last 25 or thereabout years, we have taken about 1,232,000 students to university. Among those 1.2 million, government has spent upwards of 128.5 billion shillings in terms of educating those Kenyans. Today, we have about 500,000 students who are in school, and therefore we cannot be able to ask them, to repay because they need to complete school. We give them grace period, then they are called upon to start repaying. Among the paying category, we about 480,000 have already cleared. They are due for repayment. We are very excited with about 234,000 who have cleared repaying the loans, and that's about 25.1 billion that has been able to revolve back again to the fund. We have about 238,000 carrying about 44 billion who continue to pay on a daily basis. And the ones who are in school are, as I said, 500,000, and they're carrying about 60 billion. And then we have challenges with about 109,000 who are carrying 10.5 billion. And they range into many category of years, maybe as we go along and be able to explain. Some of them went to school between 1974 and 1977. They are carrying about 50 million. And that accounts for about 3%. And they have not even made an effort. Of course, we know in that class, there are some who are dead.
But Ringera, 1974, 79, they retired.
And even some are dead.
A good number are dead, yes. So how do you expect to recover money from these people?
Now, not to recover. Remember, we have an insurance scheme.
Oh.
So we have an internal insurance scheme. So the issue is, if we have, there are people coming forward and saying so and so is dead, then that will be good. Now, it is taking us a very long process for us to be able to know that. Because remember, the old debt, which are more than 10 years, we have given to private debt collectors. So it is these private debt collectors try to trace your village and look for your parents. And
then they come back with information.
But this guy died, I don't know when. So now they bring us that information. So that is how we are cleaning the book, which is a little bit difficult.
This 109,000 that you're saying are your current big issue.
Yes.
What are they? Are they defaulters?
They are defaulters because their loan has become due and they have not made any effort to repay.
Is there any specific timeline? Are you saying like they've defaulted for 5 years, or is it defaulted for their loan became due in January and they have not paid now? They have entered that list.
Correct. So between 1974, the ones who graduated between 1974 and 1977, and you must have seen the Auditor General speaking about this, which is between 45 years and 50 years since they graduated. We have about 3,533. Those ones are owing us about 50 million, which is 3% of the portfolio. Those who graduated between 1978 and 1982, which is 40 to 44 years, are 6,182. They are carrying 165 million.
Muga is among them, but they just go and check.
Moga is among them. I think I'll take the ID and the full names because there are times they were not using, the ID system. But you can see actually in that portfolio, the largest is the ones who graduated between 2013 and 2017, which means their loan is about 5 to 9 years old, which they're about 19,600, and they are carrying about 2.9 billion. In fact, I'm very excited about the ones who graduated between 2017 and 2022, which means they alone are quite young. They are below 5 years. But there are only 16,768 who are in default, and they are carrying about 2.2 billion. So that is how we stratify the data so that then we can know where do we focus our effort and how do we deliver these 109 to be able to repay back.
And clearly the focus is on the 2013 to 2017
Correct.
cohort.
Yes.
Because there are very many defaulters there.
Yes, which is about 3 billion.
I'm sure you've reached out to some of them. Are you able to establish why they're defaulting?
Yes, some of them, we have this migration out of the country. People looking for greener pastures and they are no longer here. And that is why we have a very elaborate diaspora campaign. Like this message now of 100% COVID waiver, we are taking it right into where there is high traffic of Kenyan areas. What do I mean? So at the end of the month, I leave for South Africa. It's estimated that about 50,000 Kenyans are in South Africa. In America, we expect that there are about 3 million Kenyans, and we have a very elaborate campaign within the entire of North America. Early in May, we will be in UK, again trying to sensitize them all the way up to Glasgow because it's estimated about 200,000 Kenyans are in that market.
In that UK.
Yes, in that UK. But there are quite a number of Kenyans also within EAC. Uganda, I think, is leading with about 200-300. But of course, Uganda is because of the proximity. Some people, when they hear Kenya, they don't know whether they're in Uganda or they're in Kenya. So you'll have that kind of confusion. And we are funding quite a number of Kenyans also who are attending universities within East Africa. And Uganda is a leading destination for some of those Kenyans, yes.
The issues that we've had here on the show, and that's what we were discussing earlier in the week, is on loan falling due. Then there is the interest accrual, and there is the penalty. Just take us through that. From the moment, take us through the entire application process, the award of the loan, and then the repayment. What are the expectations in each stage?
Yeah, so some of us don't read the fine print.
Some.
Or all of us.
Let me ask a question. How many people read the fine prints?
Yeah.
Only those who've written the fine print.
And they're really fine because they are tiny, almost microscopic.
And
Anyway,
then
please go on.
Ours, we have tried to make them at least size font 10, which means we hope that you'll be able to read. Again, they are online.
Okay.
So you can magnify if you so wish. So once you finish school, from 4, or basic education, and now you want to join university, you have already been placed by Kenya Universities and College Central Placement Service. You've either been placed into a TVET or a university.
Yeah.
Once the TVET or university like UN has been told, Eric Latif is joining you to do communication, you pull down that letter from the website of University of Nairobi, you get onto our website. If you think you need the loan, remember, we don't fund everybody.
Okay.
We fund the needy.
Okay.
It's only that it's shocking that almost everybody who has got a C+ and above becomes needy all of a sudden. Because out of 143,000, for example, last year who qualified to join university, we have applications upwards of 110,000. So, everybody is almost everybody is needy.
Yeah.
So you then do the application. Before you do the application, we take you through an online literacy program for financial literacy program. And we communicate that this is a loan, it must be paid back, and quite a number of questions, budgeting process. Do you know this money that we have given you will be paid twice in the year? Do you know it should run you across the year? Do you know don't go into frivolous spending like most of us? That is maybe what we did, and that is why it becomes painful for us to be able to pay that money back. So we educate you because this is the first time you have about $500 in your pocket, when you're in high school, you will hardly get that kind of lump sum, in your pocket. So we took upon ourselves to do online financial literacy program. Do you know you cannot be able to access the loan form until you do an exam on that online literacy program, and you must score 80+. If you don't score any of the 80+, you repeat again, the exam until you actually are able to achieve that. Once you pass that financial literacy education program, we then give you the loan forms again online. So we ask for all manner of data, including your grandmother, your grandfather. For obvious reasons, there's a reason why you do that. Because we are looking at your background. Are you needy? And we apply something called means test instrument to look at the neediness. And that is how our loans range between the orphan of the most orphans will get upwards of 60,000 and a bursary of 8,000. That is 68,000. And people like you guys, your children will get about 37,000. I'm already sizing you from that means testing, instrument.
Brother Ringera, he has been biased.
No, I'm not being biased.
He has profiled us, and now he's using that false profiling to carry
deny
on.
your children.
We can tell you that system of yours is faulty.
It is not faulty because it is the information you give us,
All right.
collaborated by your guarantor, your parent, your pastor or Kathy, and also certified by a commissioner of votes. Why do you go for certification of a commissioner of votes? So that in case you are lying on the information you give us, you'll be in for perjury. So those are some of the mechanisms we have put in place. In fact, we have even brought an whistleblower program. What does a whistleblower program do? It helps us to say, you can whistleblow on you and say this guy is cheating, the father is not dead. Because we have many of those children who are killing their parents for purposes of them, benefiting
Just from benefiting from this.
Yeah, from the loan scheme. And therefore, after you feel all that, we do an assessment. First of all, remember, we will have been voted by Parliament and told this year you'll use, like this year we have been told to use 14.2 billion shillings to fund students. Now, Parliament, unfortunately, does not tell you fund 10 students.
No.
It is you now to see the applications you have received, the guys who are ongoing, the guys who are getting off, and you balance the portfolio. That is how the averages now start, differing. Like, for example, this year, I can tell you for free, we ran out of budget. There is about 75,000, both in TVET and universities, who we can't fund. And you can actually see they come from very awkward economic backgrounds. They are needy. And there's nothing we can be able to do. And that is why efforts like the ones we are doing on 100% COVID waiver are coming into place to see whether we can be able to build some liquidity, because clearly Treasury has said under supplementary budget they cannot be able to afford anything further. So we want to see whether we can get some money beyond the 14.2 billion that has been voted by Parliament, to help these kids who are outside there. So we'll then fund them. And once you get on our loan program, we will never leave you. But you must always express your interest in terms of the loan.
So you have to keep reapplying.
Every year. Because, your father can hit a sport pesa jackpot.
Yeah, just like that.
So, do you need our support anymore?
Or go to KEMSA.
Yeah, or KEMSA. You can be walking along that street and then you land into... So you no longer need our support. So you must express your interest again. But again, we have now brought a very interesting and very easy method. For subsequent applications, now they are on mobile phone.
Okay.
They say, yes, I'm still in school, I need. Remember also, at times you may not know how long you'll be in school. One, you can be hit by a medical case.
Yeah.
2, you can be doing engineering, which is 5 years. 3, you can be doing medicine, which is 6 years. So again, that is why it is important for you to keep on expressing your interest, because I'm a medicine student in year 5, in year 6, so that we can know exactly where you are. But once we onboard you, then we will not leave you until you finish your course. Now, once your course is over, and course is run between 4 years to 7 years, for doctors, we'll give you 1 year grace period for you to settle in life.
Okay.
Not to look for a job. I think that's the biggest confusion. To settle in life, you couldn't be married, or you could marry a rich person. That is part of settling in life.
Right.
And the Bible says, your people will be my people, your debt will be my debt. So, you can help one another in terms of sorting out yourself through a marriage process.
In this 1 year.
Yes, in this 1 year. Do you know, actually, we are participating in a lot of pre-weddings just to also put our case and say, as you marry this girl, she's carrying this kind of a burden. So when you are doing fundraising for these pre-weddings, please be aware. This is a kind of liability which is coming on board. And let's say on shared prosperity. So you are going to prosper. So can we share, in this prosperity that we are looking at?
So 1 year grace period.
1 year grace period.
After which
that your loan becomes due.
It doesn't matter whether you struck a jackpot, whether you got married, whether you got a job, your loan becomes due.
It becomes due.
What if my circumstances have not changed at all?
And that is why we say HELB cares, HELB listens, come we talk.
But does someone have to come physically?
No, because we have all these channels that we have now introduced. We have almost a 24-hour service contact center, which you can call in.
You know why I asked the question?
Yes.
Was when we had the lawyer here, this lawyer who was representing people who had benefited from the HELB loan system, was a constant comment about non-communication. He put forward the argument that letters had been written to HELB and the responses were not forthcoming until somebody physically went to the offices. That is why I asked the
question. Did he show you the letter?
Oh, no. He did not show us anything.
So, yeah. So that we can only count those as rumors.
We can. I'm actually asking so that you can either confirm.
You're aware
or
of this
confound.
particular case, aren't you? The case by the various students who've gone to court saying, well, we'd like some review of the law.
Yes.
You're aware of this case?
Yeah, no, we have just heard about it. There are others. Parliamentarians also have are reviewing the act. One of it is to reduce interest rates. The other one is to say that I cannot deny anybody a loan.
Yeah.
And of course, I deny somebody a loan because I can see you are able. Comparing you and him, I can see you are able because these are the funds which are there. Now, there is also another confusion that we have. They think that HELB has got
Limitless
unlimited, yes. And yet, our money is voted by Parliament.
Them.
Those parliamentarians are the ones who vote in our money. In fact, it is so disheartening that when I appear in Parliament, I'm told, why aren't you funding these students and they are coming to borders under CDF? I say, but it is the money you gave me. In that money that you voted for me, you told me also you are not going to give me 100%. You will only give me 60%.
Of the money which was voted?
Yes, Exchequer gives us 60%. For example, let me give you the business case for this year. We will receive, the voted money is 15.8 billion, including salaries for my staff. Loans to students will be 14.5 billion. Now, that money, Exchequer will give me 11 billion. I must go out there and look for 5 billion through the people who benefited from the scheme.
So then, how is it an allocation when it is not given to you in full?
Because it must be voted in Parliament. Remember, even loan recoveries is government money.
Yes, it is.
So that is why it must be voted in Parliament. Otherwise, you'll be spending government money which has not been voted by the National Assembly.
What I'm actually asking is, because I find this a bit confusing. Yeah? The government understands the limitations that you have. Parliament votes in whatever amount. What guides this vote?
So, and this is a national budgeting process. This is a national budgeting process. So they say education envelope, this year, for example, the education envelope is 515 billion, which is 22% of the national budget. And the education, by the way, if you're aware, it is the largest funded vote.
Yep.
Now, in that 515 billion, TSC has taken 300 billion. So what is left for TVET, university, for TVET and university and basic is about 200 billion, about 215 billion.
Yes.
Now remember, in basic education, there are 18 million learners.
Yep.
In higher education, where we are about 1.2 million learners. So university education this year has been funded at 109 billion of the 515. The other balance between 215 and 109, that is going to basic. For purposes of free secondary, free primary, or all that money. Now, for us, in the 109 billion, this is how government works. Don't imagine the entire 109 billion is coming from Exchequer.
It is not.
Part of it is called A in A, appropriations in aid. So universities are supposed to charge school fees. The 16,000 they have been complaining about is low.
Right.
So when they take the 16,000, it is what forms about 60 billion they are supposed to raise. Government will give in 43 billion for university education, and universities are supposed to raise the other. For HELB will be given 11 billion out of that 109, and we are supposed to raise A as part of our revenue
contribution
generation of about 33%, which is about 5 billion. Now, when people don't pay, and they are supposed to be time to pay, then it means I have a problem with my A&A. I will not be able to collect. A case in point, last year, we are targeted to collect 5 billion. COVID comes in. People start losing jobs, and they stop repaying the loans. I lost in between 1 billion from loan recoveries. Mm-hmm. Then it went to Exchequer. Exchequer said corporations are not paying taxes. So we go for a supplementary budget. Supplementary budget hit me with a 2.2 billion budget cut.
Wow.
And the problem is, I have already allocated this money to the student.
Wow.
They say the student is not in school. Then we hear that universities are saying, no, we are doing online learning.
So you should still pay.
Yeah, people must pay school fees. We are doing online learning. The student then comes to HELB and says, why aren't you giving me money? And yet you allocated me 40,000. I say, because I got a budget cut. Which student understand a budget cut because of COVID? That is 2020, 2021. 2019, 2020, I lost 2.8 billion from Exchequer. They had promised to give me 11.3 billion. The last quarter, they said, COVID has hit us, so we make an adjustment, 2.85 billion. Between COVID period, I've actually lost on loan recoveries, on COVID, on Exchequer, I've lost 6 billion shillings. So how much is 6 billion? And you can now see where pressure is building on us. This 75,000 we can't fund is actually, when you look at it, it is those budget cuts and also loan repayment that we actually lost.
Wow. Let's take a break.
Even as lawyers will argue that they shouldn't pay, we have a challenge. Where do we then raise money for the future generation? That is a conversation.
Where does the money come from?
Yes, yes.
It's 24 minutes to 10. This is the conversation that we're having on the Higher Education Loans Board and how it operates, where it is right now in terms of being able to finance those that it has approved, whose loans it has approved already, and then those who are applying. Charles Ringera is the CEO of the Higher Education Loans Board. He's here with us in the studio. We are having this conversation, but let's take this quick break, take a look at the weather and traffic. We'll be back shortly.
This is the Situation Room. The only way to start your day. Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Make some noise. Yeah!
You're listening to Spice FM.
Dare for fast relief from fever? Take Cipladon. The fizz works to relieve pain and fever faster.
Available at all good pharmacies and now at Chandarana supermarkets. If symptoms persist, seek medical advice.
Classic soul, R&B, smooth jazz, neo soul, and nostalgic ballads.
Nairobi is actually warming up. It's going to be a mostly cloudy day today, but temperatures rising to 28 and dropping to 16. Mombasa, mostly sunny day at 32, dropping to 25 later. Malindi, 27, mostly sunny day at 31 and dropping to 25. Nyeri, sunny day at 28 and dropping to 11. Nakuru, sunny day at 30, dropping to 13. Kisumu, highs of 32 and lows of 18. Kakamega, highs of 34 and lows of 14. And Eldoret, highs of 28, lows of 13. Kampala, Uganda, sunny day, highs of 29 and lows of 18. Dar es Salaam, light rains at 32, dropping to 27. Kinshasa, DRC, sunny day at 32, dropping to 22. Lagos, Nigeria, sunny day at 34, dropping to 27. Johannesburg, South Africa, mostly cloudy day at 33 and dropping to 14. Beijing, China, sunny day 13. It's going to be dropping to 16 later on this evening. London, sunny day at 12 and lows of 9, while Paris will have a sunny day at 13 and lows of 8.
I hope you don't believe that a hustler is a poor person. Hustler is a person who is making his a living through hard work.
The group of leaders we are having now, Kenyans, listen, the chemical composition is the same. You will mold them to ODM, then NASA, you mold them to Kanu, mold them to Jubilee, mold them to any other different color sometimes, but the chemical composition is the same.
It's not about me as Nurdin Haji, but it's about the constitution that I swore to protect. So when individuals attempt to hoard those powers and they want to be investigators and also prosecutors, then of course I have to defend that position because that position is in the constitution and that's what Kenyans wanted.
I'll tell you what happens is that when you ignore court orders, you're creating and quoting anarchy. then you create a very dangerous precedent.
A story is told of the first president of the country who also went to visit Mathare, presidential tour. Yeah? And of course, he went to this place and he introduced himself. So one of the enemies says, hata wewe kuna jina kama yangu.
The Situation Room, Kenya's biggest conversation.
It's all good apart from the area between Nyayo Stadium and South Sea, which is a pileup of traffic, and also Wilson Airport heading towards town on Langata Road up to Mbagathi Way roundabout. As well as Muthurwa, this is the area on just heading towards Wakulima Market. It's also quite busy. Thika Road is now moving very smoothly. Kiambu Road only at the junction into Thika Road. That's where the problems are. The rest of the roads are looking not so bad right now. Mombasa Road is actually busy around Imara Daima, but then you understand that's because of the construction that's ongoing, because the same situation is seen on Mombasa Road at Mlolongo and around the SGR. Anything else that we need to talk about, please let us know on Twitter, SpiceFM KE.
Spice FM, Nakuru. Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Penalties and waivers. The CEO, Charles Ringera, is with us in the studio. You're explaining to us the constraints that you have. There's allocation from the government, then there's appropriation in aid, which is recoveries from those who owe you the money. You've had issues during COVID, budget cuts at the government level, and then job losses and therefore loss of income at your stakeholders level. So they're not repaying. Does the law limit your sources of money?
No, the law does not limit, and I actually wanted to come to that because if you look at the HELB Act, Section 6P, it talks about external resource mobilization outside the traditional loan repayment and of course exchequer. That had not been operationalized until 2013. That's the time I was actually joining the board. And one of the key aspects that the board then that recruited me was looking at is how do we get into this space of external resource mobilization. And we came up with a strategy of being able to resource mobilize. And although I even say even government is resource mobilization, because you got to talk a lot with government, you got to talk with parliament, you got to lobby. And actually, you can see our lobbying effort. We have increased exchequer allocation from 2.7 billion, which was in 2012, to the current exchequer level of 11.3 billion. We have improved loan recoveries from 2.7 billion to this year about 5 billion that we'll be looking at. So again, that is part of resource mobilization. But then they say a child will be educated by the community. That is where the community I came from. So we then went back to the community and said, how do we, because there are all these children who can go to school, and we come together and pool resources that we can be able to take more children to university and higher education. And our strategy focused on, first of all, were the foundations, corporate foundations.
Yes.
The corporate themselves, whether you have a foundation or you don't have a foundation. We then went to development partners. We went to individuals actually who are benefiting from HELB. Like if you have already repaid and overpaid, you don't have to ask for a refund. You can actually sign back and say, take this money to educate a girl child from my place.
Well, Ringera, I observed what you did. You talked about having overpaid, and then you looked at me when you talked about not asking for a refund. I'm going to ask for a refund.
No, we actually entitle you to a refund.
Yeah.
But then in the refund form, we have said, do you want to contribute?
Would you
might
like
have 10,000, but you want to contribute 2,000, and we give you back. Now, that was part of our strategy for resource mobilization. And I'm happy to report then we also went to counties and constituencies. Between 2013 and to date, we have been able to generate about 1.55 billion from good Kenyans. A lawyer walked into office the other day and gave us 1 million shillings. And he said, you don't know what HELB did for me. Please do for somebody else what you did for me. Here is my $1 million, Bob, and don't declare my name anywhere.
Okay.
So we have those kind of situations. Now, the problem with this also external resource mobilization, it was also equally hit by COVID. For example, the counties that are currently banking with us, we have 7 counties which are banking with us. Kakamega is the leading. We have about 110 million from Kakamega. We have about 68 million from Busia. We have Bomet. We have Taita Taveta. All these counties, we have, they are banking with us. They were also hit by extra kakat, which means they couldn't be able to support their.
Please explain
their
banking
students.
with you.
Yes.
What does that mean?
It means that you can bring money to us and we manage for you on a revolving basis. So we have a HELB for Kakamega. But then remember, Kakamega has no muscle to be able to recover the money to make it a revolving fund. That was a commitment from Oparanya when he got in. And I'm happy to report that within the period we have worked with Kakamega County, today we have 128 million from Kakamega that actually done good financial intervention to about 33,000 Kakamegans. If there's a one like
Explain to me how this works.
It's like what we were discussing with Kwale and asking, so how does Kwale support its university students?
Yes.
So this is the kind of thing.
This is the kind of thing, but then the one of Kwale is called a sinking fund.
Explain it, please.
Because it does not revolve. It does not help future generations. So once Muvulia leaves, the next governor, we don't know what his philosophy will be. But the one of Kakamega, you find that it revolves. So whether Oparanya leaves or whoever who comes into place.
So every year you're receiving money.
Then we are recovering. In fact, today it's Kakamega, we have already recovered about 5 million. We have taken it back to the kitty.
So essentially, the county gives you money.
Yes.
Okay, and it's meant for educating students in that county.
Correct.
But what you do, you don't just pay fees. You ensure that it pays what it's supposed to pay for, but you also recover.
We recover for them because they have no muscle to recover. The counties have no muscle.
And when you recover, you don't give back the money to the county.
It's a
if they want, they can take it.
But it's revolving within.
It is revolving within. Actually, the intention of Oparanya when he was starting, he was saying, once I hit 500 million, I'm done with you. Let it now revolve on itself.
Right.
And then the county also looks at, where do I have deficiencies? Is it medical doctors? Is it engineers? Is it agricultural extension officers? So they make a deliberate move. For example, Wycliffe Oparanya is a very interesting, kind of planner. He is building a hospital. The large hospital there. But he realized he has no workers.
Yes.
We have a kitty for healthcare workers training. It's called Afya Elimu. It is funded usually by USAID. USAID has actually given us upwards of 700 million to be able to take to the nurses. So Oparanya said, no, but I want to ring fence my own nurses. Give them Afya Elimu. I'm also coming under Afya Elimu Kakamega, and I want my nurses, and I board them. They must work in this hospital.
Okay.
So as he is building, he is also building skills, human resources. So by the time he is opening the hospital, the skills are also ready to join there. They are boarded. They can't work anywhere else until they pay off.
The money is recovered.
Yes, the money is recovered. Yes.
Okay. So that is one way.
Eric, just pause for a second.
Ask.
Do all governors in Kenya understand what you've just told us?
Have you done a pitch to all of them?
So I will not talk about understanding. I'll talk about that we have reached to all the governors. Not once, twice. Understanding is another
issue altogether.
Debate that we will bring on board.
I phrased it wrongly.
Yes.
I should have. Eric's question was more valid. Have you pitched it to them?
Correct. We have pitched to all the governors. Okay. We have pitched to all the parliamentarians. And yet, out of the 290 constituencies, we only have 15 who are onboarded. Last week I was in Parliament and I talked to the Health Committee of Parliament. And they told me, maybe you are pitching in the wrong site. So I asked him, sir, where do I pitch? He told me, you see the new parliament when it comes into place, do a conference for us. Yeah. We'll be able then to understand. Now you know what a conference means.
Yes, of course. You take us to Mombasa. But then, how have you been pitching?
We've been pitching individually, directly.
So you go to an MP in their office.
So remember, every of my staff, I have about 320 members of staff. They come from somewhere. So every staff that we have, every board member that we have, is a resource mobilization officer or manager.
Okay.
So I know when I went to go to whichever constituency, I have somebody who can be able to make me reach there. And again, even by virtue of using the office of the CEO HELB, it is possible for me to be able to visit, most of these guys.
Yes.
And we pitch a lot at Council of Governors. And I want to thank Honorable Oparanya again. When he was there, because we were able to make a presentation to all of them at one single shot, and he was giving testimony of what he has experienced with us.
How many counties have actually?
We have 7 counties.
7 counties, 15 constituencies.
15 constituencies.
How many constituencies in, for example, Kakamega?
None in Kakamega. So you can see diversity of.
So the 7 counties, the constituencies are not necessarily from these 7 counties.
No.
Okay.
I'll give you an example. Chuka Igamba Ngombe. Yet Chuka County is not there. Chuka Igamba Ngombe as a constituency is there.
Yeah, there's not
but
Chuka County. But
I mean, the Rakanidi is not. Is not there. Yeah, sure. Yeah.
Okay. There's corporate CSR. There's development partners. There's looking at refunds and asking for people to contribute. There's pitching to individuals and saying, you know what, how about you contribute this and say ring fence it into this. There is the other funds drives that you do. Of all this, how much have you been able to raise?
1.55 billion between 2013 and 2021, or where we are 2022. We are at 1.55 billion.
Are you allowed to receive endowments from external bodies? I heard you mention USAID.
Yes.
Are you allowed to?
Yes, we are allowed to receive that. Even Ratansi, which is an endowment fund,
Yes.
Ratansi has already banked with us also.
Yes. The reason I'm asking this question is, I am thinking of some of the very renowned universities in the world and some of the progress that they have made. A lot of it is not government money, it's endowments.
Correct.
Students who went to that school, who went to that university, benefited, and someone builds a library, someone does something or the other. How strong has your pitch been to people who have benefited from HELB?
Very strong, and that's why I'm saying we have talked to, we call it HELB alumni. There is no university with the level of alumni we have. We have 1.23 million alumni.
Those are many people.
And we have written personalized letters to them. Why we have not written to you? Because we don't have your address. Because, you know, when you went to school, you wrote P.O. Box 10 Kamagambo. You know, now you no longer live there. So that's the only connection we have. We never had emails for your time. Yeah. We didn't have cell phones during your time. So those are some of the difficulties that we have. And yet, the ones we have now, emails or correct contact telephones, are very young. Those ones cannot even come back to give you anything. The people I'm targeting now is you guys. But then I don't have your address. You know, of that database, I don't have your address. Because that is where I should actually be pitching under.
Let me ask you.
Yes.
Corporates. Because corporates have all this CSR. There are all these organizations that are looking into education. So, for example, Equity, it's doing whatever it's doing with secondary and university. And the other corporates, how strong is the response that you're receiving from the corporates?
I would say the most successful, the blue chips, corporates, are not very successful with us because they are looking for their white-labeled product.
Okay.
Equity's wings to fly does not want to compete with HELBs. So it becomes very difficult. But when you look at mid corporates, I mean, we are banking with Family Bank. They have really supported us. I&M Bank, Standard Chartered, where they don't have strong foundations, you realize they would want to work with us.
Right.
The ones with the strong foundations, the KCBs, the Equities, you find that they want to do it. And then again, it depends with their pillars, because they drive various pillars in different times. But what we have encouraged, even the KCBs and the Equities who are big in this business, is let them also think, this kid they funded at high school, where is he going to go post high school? So that then they can carry them through. I'm happy to report that conversation seems to have hit a good sense of conversation with people like Family Bank Foundation. And Family Bank Group Foundation is already working with us in terms of transition. When they come to higher education, how do we then work with them? In the multilateral development partners, we are very excited with USAID. They are part and parcel of the support group. But also World Bank has come in just lately. But the way they come in, it's not to give you cash. They are helping us to do a product that we want to put in the market of issuing a corporate social board. So we'll be issuing an edu board. And we are targeting the proceeds of the edu board to come and finance laptop program for university students. Why laptops? Online learning is now the way to go. I mean, quite a number of them are learning out of bars. Do you know why they go to the bar? Because they get free Wi-Fi. And for you to get a free Wi-Fi in a bar, for example, you must be able to buy something. I don't know what they buy, but they are able to get Wi-Fi. But then they access class through phones. We think if we can be able to give them devices like laptops or iPad or whatever, bigger ones, then they can attend the class in a more comfortable way. And even when they go back to school, remember, because of social distance, a class that used to have 200 people, for example, is now being told on-site, in person, 100. Then the others can be around the campus, connected into the classroom. The best way they can be able to connect into the classroom is for them to have devices. So I've worked out, if I have 600,000 enrolled in the universities, 20% of that we have done some research, I've got a gadget or the other. So I need about 500,000 gadgets to be able to take to the universities at an average cost of about 40,000 or thereabout for a reasonable laptop. Then I will require upwards of about 12 billion to be able to do this. So those are the numbers that we will be advertising for this social board that will be. I'm happy that Treasury has already given an approval. So we are going through the motions to be able to raise. So that's another area where I've been told you can go out there and raise funds outside the exchequer and then be able to make intermediation to the university students.
Do you work with professional fundraisers?
Yes. So there is a group which called Kenya Association of Professional Fundraisers, KEAPF. We actually have members. There is also another one called East African Association of Grant Makers. We are also members of that. By the way, I will excite you and to also join there. And you know also blood donation is part of fundraising.
Yes.
Yes.
And I got that from the former, chair of Blood Bank and Blood Link called Muriuki. And it's actually Joe Muriuki who made us, get into that space. And in that conversation, during the annual seminar or the coffee, whatever events that they do, we actually discuss what is cutting edge now, what is being discussed in the donor world. Who are the various donors? Where do we pitch? If you're looking for education, where do we pitch? And they have a library of the areas you can actually be able to hit. In fact, one of the funders that we have is from Wall Street, is called DDD from New York. We actually got him through that conversation, and they gave us about 25 million.
Two questions as we conclude the conversation. One of them is coming from, I think, is somebody who's already one of your customers. Watuambie kwa nini hata saa hii first years hatujaipata HELB na year 1 imeisha.
So there are two dimensions to that discussion. Of course, I can now say everybody who we process their loan as a December, when we close the portal, we are paid 100% unless they have not opened. However, as I told you, we ran out of budget sometimes in January. So I have 75,000 applications valued at about 3.1 billion. I have no money. And that is why campaigns like what we are doing on the penalty amnesty is to see whether we can actually increase the allocation that was given by government to see whether it can go to these very needy ones. We are very worried as a board because chances are that if we don't actually fund these ones, they may actually
will
bolt
not
out
go
of
to
school.
university.
Next year doesn't look any better.
Yeah.
I've just gotten my estimate for next year. Government has cut down our budget by about 300 million. So enrollment is increasing, demand is increasing, money is coming down. And that is why initiatives like these ones, like issuance of our board, is part and parcel of what we are doing to make liquidity in our education loans board much better than it is now.
Should the law be amended to remove that waiver, that 5,000 shillings
penalty?
Actually the truth, nobody pays that 5,000. It is debited to your account, but in the process of you paying, we bring a waiver. Because the waiver is 100%, it removes everything.
Okay.
In fact, if you come and have a conversation with us, even in that penalty that you have, maybe 100,000, even without this COVID waiver, I can actually, that's why you're saying, HELB listens, HELB cares, come we talk. You tell me what programs that you have. And anyway, why did you get into a penalty? Did you know, and that is part of our financial literacy, did you know that if you actually, when your account becomes due and you pay something small, even the airtime that you normally use in a day, and you pay something small, the system gets confused. and it actually does not charge you any penalty. That is the literature. That is the education that we have to do to our customers.
Kumi inatosha.
Exactly.
To avoid the 5,000.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Charles, for joining us. Charles Ringera is the CEO of the Higher Education Loans Board. We'll have him again because these are interesting conversations. And next time, people will call and ask you questions.
Spice.